Okay, this is the accent tag for an El Paso accent. The words I'm supposed to read are ant, route, but we do say Route 66 when we're talking about particular roads. Wash, oil, theater, iron, salmon, caramel, fire, water, sure, data, or data, but it's usually data. Ruin, crayon, toilet, New Orleans, pecan, and I know that's right because it came from the Spanish word pecana, and they got it from the Native Americans in Texas. Both, again, probably, I'll leave out the B and the A. Spitting image, Alabama, lawyer, coupon, mayonnaise, I guess I leave out the Y and the O. Syrup, pajamas, and cot. I don't say quat. What is it called when you throw toilet paper on a house, rolling or TPing? What is that bug that when you touch it, it curls into a ball? That's a roly-poly. What is the bubbly carbonated drink called? It's a Coke. So you can say, is the only kind of Coke you have a Coke? What do you say to address a group of people? Y'all. What do you call the kind of spider or spider-like creature that has an oval-shaped body and extremely long legs? That's a daddy long legs. What do you call your grandparents? I don't think that one's a fair question because usually you call them whatever the first word, the first thing that came out of the first grandkid's mouth, and mine was Gammer and Pawpaw. What do you call the wheel contraption which you carry groceries at the supermarket? That's a shopping cart. What do you call it when rain falls and the sun is shining? A sunshiny shower, which won't last half an hour. What's the thing you change the TV channel with? That's a remote. So if you look in an atlas of accents, you will find that the El Paso accent is basically a general American or Gen Am accent. In Gen Am, we pronounce all our R's and we tap, which means that we use a D sound instead of a T sound in words like butter and water. So the British would say butter and water. We also drop the yod, which means we would say tube instead of tube. Also in Gen Am, COT and CAUGHT are the same. They're both cot, and DON and DAWN are the same, dawn and dawn. So in New York it would be cot and quat, and dawn and dawn. But then when you go to Chicago, it becomes cot and cat and dawn and dan. And another thing about the El Paso accent is that PIN and PEN are the same. So you could say, hey, I need to borrow your pen because I gotta write something down. So the fact that we have a Gen Am accent makes it different from the rest of Texas, where they use a mix of the West Texas accent, also known as the Inland South accent, or similar to that, or the East Texas accent, similar to the Lowland South accent. So examples of the three would be West Texas, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. East Texas would be, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And El Paso would be, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I don't know really why El Paso is different, but it may be because there's been a large military presence there for a long time. Another reason could be the railroads. And this is just my theory, I'm not sure if anyone has thought of this, but El Paso was tiny until the 1880s when railroads came, and unlike most places, The railroad first came from the west instead of from the east. So the largest influx of settlers might have come from California and other areas than Texas because of that. I also have a tendency to say "wa'n't" instead of "wasn't," and I think that's a southern thing. So I would say I wasn't going to do that anyway. The thing that makes El Paso really interesting is its Latino, particularly Mexican influence. There's Mexican music, Mexican TV, and especially Mexican food. The El Paso area has been a Hispanic settlement for hundreds of years, and in fact the name comes from the Spanish El Paso del Norte, which means the Pass of the North, which led to settlement up in this area, up around Santa Fe. They thought there was gold up there in New Mexico, but there wasn't, and in fact that area had very few resources until recently, when a guy in Albuquerque came up with a good way to make really good crystal meth. I'm just kidding, New Mexico. You're our buddies. Even today, there's a neighborhood along the river where the person in charge of the homeowners association is called the alcalde, which means mayor in Spanish. The other thing is the Mexican food. In El Paso, there is great respect for this. This is an Anaheim hatch chili, and it's spelled with an E, not with an I on the end. It's grown up the river a ways. It's used in much of El Paso food. Chili is known as chile con carne, and unlike Tex-Mex food, El Paso Mexican food is less greasy, uses the Anaheim chili a lot more, and makes more use of things like sour cream, lettuce, and usually more corn than flour tortillas. A taco is always folded unless you specify it as a rolled taco. Tacos never use flour tortillas. Those are burritos. We have no chimichangas. Tapatillas are just large, round, fried corn tortillas with beans and stuff on top. I found out later that this also means a woman from Guadalajara. Caucasian people of a non-Hispanic background are called Anglos. This is true even if your ancestry isn't English. We are also called gringos, which isn't necessarily bad, or güeros. Güeros just means light complected. So when I was in high school, the other guys on the team would say, "Pásale al güero," which means pass it to the light guy, or me, and then I would usually miss the shot. Even Anglos use words like mesa, arroyo, yucca, ocotillo, lechuguilla. Lechuguilla means little lettuce, so you can tell that the Spaniards had a sense of humor. So we use words like that for natural features. This is something I've noticed in other areas of the United States. This is just an example. Vista Bonito Drive, where the adjective and the noun don't agree in gender. This is something that would never fly in El Paso, and even the Anglos wouldn't put up with it. There's also, of course, a lot of Spanglish, which mixes the two languages. So an example would be, "Ya me voy a la Walmart para comprar unos Pampers," o tal vez Huggies. We are very close to Chihuahua, where unlike other accents in Spanish, they often pronounce the ch sound as sh. So they might say, "Ay, Chihuahua," or "I want to be a teacher" instead of a teacher. So if you're trying to mimic an El Paso accent, I would say use General American, but throw in some southern words like y'all, and maybe some Spanish words like mesa or arroyo.